What's good, everybody? What's good? This your boy JTL, opposite from the norm. Um, I seen this video by way of Abba and Preach, two brothers from Canada who do it. I think they got a pretty decent channel. I watch a lot of their stuff almost every day. You know what I'm saying? I watch their stuff. Like I said, two brothers from Canada. The brother Abba, I believe, is Ethiopian, and the brother Preach, I believe, is Haitian. I like seeing their perspective on things, and you see how we still go through a lot of things, being people, what I'm saying, melanated people and all that good stuff. So when I seen this video, they was doing stuff on it, they was commenting on it, and I was like, damn, I would have said that. Or I would have said that. So I was like, you know what? I can say that. I can say this. You know what I'm saying? I decided to do it here opposite from the norm. It's called Ben Shapiro Debunks Viral Systematic Racism Video Explained. And I'm going to name it, He Tried to Debunk It. I'll get to that later. Let's go ahead, get into the video real quick. All right?
Okay, so there's a video that is going around on Facebook and on YouTube. It's from Act TV called Systemic Racism Explained. Make some interesting arguments, and I thought it's worthwhile going through them a little bit. So we're going to play the video, we'll stop it, we'll discuss. This video is sponsored by the Benham Brothers' brand new course, Expert Ownership. You can wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal owning you. Stick around to the end of the video to find out more details. This is Jamal. Jamal is a boy who lives in a poor neighborhood. He has a friend named Kevin who lives in a wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal's neighbors are African American, and all of Kevin's neighbors are white. Because Jamal's school district is mostly funded by property taxes, his school is not very well funded. His classrooms are overcrowded, his teachers are underpaid, and he doesn't have access to high-quality tutors or extracurricular activities. Kevin's school district is also funded by property taxes, so his school is very well funded. His classrooms are never crowded, his teachers are very well paid, and he has access to high-quality tutors and lots of extracurricular activities. So, let's talk for a second about school policy.
Okay, real quick, I want to say this. If I would have did a video like this, me personally, I would have started with slavery. And real quick, the reason why I say that is because that's the start of systemic racism in this country, having to do with slavery. So I would have probably put that in there first, but okay.
The reality is that if you wanted Jamal to be able to go to Kevin's school, what you'd want is something called school vouchers. You want people to be able to move away from their school districts. One of the chief reasons that Jamal is confined to his local public school is because of Democratic policy that has decided that you must go to school in the district where you live. And this is also why a lot of people have left lower income areas and moved out to higher income areas specifically for better public schools. So if you want Jamal to have the same educational opportunities as Kevin, perhaps you should have school vouchers for private schools, or perhaps you should have charter schools, which is what Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York is fighting against, or perhaps you should break the teachers' unions, which are costing a fortune, particularly on a disproportionate level in areas where they're not spending enough taxpayer dollars. So I'm all for improving Jamal's schools. I'm also all for Jamal having all the same educational opportunities as Kevin. The problem is most Democrats are not. Kevin and Jamal live...
Okay, real quick on what he just said about Democrats and the whole school thing. Let me put this to y'all. Okay, for one thing, he's right on the school system, the way, all right, just in case you've never seen any of my other videos before, I worked over 10 years with the youth and youth programs, and we've had to deal with the school, and there's been a lot of a-hole teachers at these schools, you know what I'm saying, and then the principal not helping on certain situations, and then the protection that they get from the school board or school union, teacher unions and stuff like that. Sort of like the police. Anyways, I digress. But he has a point. There is certain things that goes on in these school systems that do need to be broken down, that we allow to keep happening. The problem I have with it is that when he runs to say Democrats, shitty people are shitty people. Just like if you want us to believe, where the police system, the whole police system does not have to do with racism, it's just shitty people in the police force, then we have to realize that on both sides with Democrats and Republicans then. Instead of just running to the whole, it's Democrats' fault, these are just people being shitty instead of caring about people's education systems. Now with the vouchers and things of that nature, all right, cool, we got a point that could help. And then people shouldn't be just stuck in their area if they want to go to a better school. But it's kind of difficult if, say, the better school is like 30 miles away, or let's say 12, 15 miles away, and you got a school that's right around the corner. If you got parents that work, or a single parent that you live with that works, and they gotta get you to school in a hurry and go on about their business, or if something happens, God forbid, and they gotta get there, it's a lot closer, or you can walk home if you're like in middle school or high school, or somebody's closer to that school. The problem is with the so-called vouchers and all of that things, and saying just send somebody to another school, is a lot of programs. Like I said, I work with the school system for years, so I can only speak to what I seen in the schools area around my area and stuff like that, from what I've seen personally. Okay, you got a lot of situations when they say with these vouchers and things of that nature, you can't get a voucher for every child. We gotta understand that first and foremost. If you have a school that's in a poor neighborhood, regardless of what color, right, and you got a couple thousand kids that go there, if all those kids, or let's say 50% of them, right, let's say 1,000 kids have a problem with that, 1,000 kids are not going to be able to just go ahead and go to all these other schools, because then they become overcrowded. Then you got to remember what they say about this whole affirmative action thing. Those schools vouchers, a lot of those to send them to better schools, especially if they're in rich neighborhoods or white rich neighborhoods, may not really want those kids there. But let's say they can get there through those vouchers. You got to remember, not every child is going to be able to just leave from that neighborhood and those schools and then be able to just go to a better school. So we need to talk more about what can we do about fighting those teacher unions and things of that nature to make sure we get better teachers in there and hiring better teachers. That's what I would say about that. You can't just blame it on Democrats. We got to do more work. And if it is the Democrats, why don't Republicans work with them more? And really try to give a give and take instead of just blaming and all of that, because that's banging. You know what I'm saying? That's y'all set tripping of being being Republicans. But I digress. Let me go and get to the rest of what he said.
Only a few streets away from each other. So how come they're growing up in such different worlds with such different opportunities for success? The answer has to do with America's history of systemic racism. To understand it better, let's look at what life was like for Kevin and Jamal's grandparents. In order to understand what's going to happen in this video, you have to understand how systemic racism is being defined. Systemic racism is a really amorphous term. It could mean many things. It could mean that the institutions of today are racist, in which case everyone would oppose them. Or it could mean that all inequality is explainable by racism, which of course is not sustainable. It's not a good argument. The argument that this video is going to try to make is that all of history has meaning. And that is true. History does have consequences for today. The problem is, as we'll see, the video tries to explain all inequality with reliance on history and no inequality with response to exacerbating levels of income inequality, exacerbating levels of single motherhood, personal decision-making, or any of the other variables that could come into creating the gaps we see today. Nikki?
Okay, see, the problem with what he said is this. Every time I feel that a lot of people, let's try our best to just leave it off this whole Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative for a second, right? Okay, personal choice, you're right. We do have to give an account to the personal choices that we made, especially, like I said earlier, if you stay with a single parent, you know what I'm saying? So those single parents may be trying to work a lot because of poor choices they made when they had kids, not being married. But let's not forget, because if I'm not mistaken, the statistic rate, and y'all can check this and correct me if I'm wrong, put it in the link, put it in the comment section and give me a link or something. If I'm not mistaken, the divorce rate in this country is about 60%. 60%. So let's just guesstimate. Let's just say it's like 80 million Americans in this country that's married. All right. So if the divorce rate is about 60 million, it's about 60%, right? And it says 80 million people that's married. So that means if not half, or they will fail, right? To a point where it's going to be out of that 80 million, it's going to be, y'all excuse me, I'm not that great with math. Well, at least not no more. Let's say if they're saying 60%. So 50% of that would be what? 40 million, right? So let's say the 60 million is 50, then you got 30 million, marriages that survive over long term or to the end. You know what I mean? So if you got 60 million people, or I'm sorry, 50 million people, right? in divorce. So there's a possibility that even if people get married, that you still could end up being raised by a single parent. Technically, that would still be a single parent. If you go to dad house for a while, you go to mom house for a while, or whoever you stay with. Okay, so that's another choice you got to think. Now, let's say that those kids are still able to stay into those good schools. Great, no problem. That's great. That's dope. But the only problem I have with that argument, what you're saying is that they're just putting it to systemic racism. There's situations that happen where everybody builds up that things can fall down. Like I said, the divorce rate is about 60% in this country. 60% in this country. And don't forget, right now, over 40 million Americans are out of work because of this pandemic that's going on. That's going to affect people right now too. And then people are not in school right now either. So you never know what could happen. You know what I'm saying? Even if you do plan to make things better and perfect. But that does not necessarily mean that systemic racism is not a part of that. That's why I said I would have threw slavery in this, because that's the start of, systemic racism, the systematic racism being built to something. That's the start of it. So he can make that argument that that's not true if he wants to, but my problem, like I said, you have a lot of people that will sit back and think that they're so smart about things and don't really do their real research or knowledge and go out to the field to do their real research. But let's go ahead and go again.
After the Civil War, many government agencies started to draw maps dividing cities into sections that were either desirable or undesirable for investment. This practice was called redlining, and it usually blocked off entire black neighborhoods from access to private and public investment. Banks and insurance companies used these maps for decades to deny black people loans and other services based purely on race. Historically speaking, owning a home and getting a college education is the easiest way for an American family to build wealth. But when Jamal's grandparents wanted to buy a house, the banks refused because they lived in a neighborhood that was redlined. So Jamal's grandparents were not able to buy a home, and because colleges could prevent them from attending through legal segregation, their options for higher education were really scarce.
So let's talk about redlining. Redlining became illegal in the United States as early as 1968. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act was followed by the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act in 1975, which was a predecessor to the Community Reinvestment Act, both of which were an attempt to ensure that people who are living in low-income minority neighborhoods could actually get loans. And these things were very effective. In 1992, researchers at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston tried to look at the data. They collected information on some 30 variables related to lending decisions. They found that virtually all of the difference between minority and non-minority denial rates was explained by those variables. A reanalysis of that information found that black-owned banks were actually lending to white-owned businesses at higher rates than they were lending to black-owned businesses. Furthermore, if it seemed that banks were discriminating against black borrowers on the basis of they needed to have higher credit qualifications, what you would see is lower default rates from black clients of banks, from people who are borrowing money from banks in the black community. There are zero studies that show any of this. So the bottom line is this: redlining was an evil and awful policy. It was made illegal in the 1960s. By the 1980s, the banks were not lending at disproportionate rates. In fact, if you look at among different communities, as Thomas Sowell has pointed out, Asian Americans get loans more easily than white Americans. That does not mean the banks are being racist toward white Americans on behalf of Asian Americans. When it comes to college education,
okay, let me say something real quick before he finishes. I let him finish that. Okay, see, this is once again another issue. He's saying that they put laws in place. This is why I have a problem with this video, and I'll say this real quick, and then I'll finish on the end. Okay, if they had to put laws into place, that means what? That it was real. Okay, so you're saying that, they put laws in place, it was an evil thing, that it should have never happened, blase, squaze with the banks, and then even black banks was doing the same thing. But Thomas Sowell says that Asians are able to get a lot more credit than a lot of white people. But you got to realize something. That wasn't always that way either. The Asian community had to build up to get that too, because they was going through a lot of racism too. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like Asians first came to this country and they had a whole bunch of money. They was doing the railroad work and stuff like that in the beginning, I believe. So they had to come through and they had to build up a lot to get to the point that they're at, building their credit up and showing that they had money and work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they was just giving Asian people that because they were just always so great. They had to build up to get to that point too. You know what I'm saying? So when he tries to switch it that is not systemic racism, but then goes to another racial issue and then says that's not what's going on with white people. Now you got to remember, he's part of the Jewish community. So, they had a lot of fighting and doing like to get things back together after, what happened with Nazis and stuff like that in Germany. So I don't know about that one.
It is also worth noting that, yes, there were many universities that were segregated. There were many universities that did not allow black people to attend. Since the 1970s, the most prominent measure that has been used in order to admit black students to major universities across the country has been affirmative action, which actively discriminates against people who are not black in favor of black applicants, specifically by ensuring that black applicants don't have to have the same test scores or GPAs in order to get into those same schools. So not only has policy been corrected, it's been overcorrected in these areas.
Now let me say something on this. All right, with affirmative action, let me tell you this is where it's an issue at, right? When they say this. When you see a lot of black people that were able to because of affirmative action, get into schools, get jobs, and get loans and whatever, because that was what it was supposed to help. You have people and companies, right, that use affirmative action to get grants and loans and things of that nature. So they would hire black people to get the loans and things that they're needed to get community projects, to get loans and to get acceptance and to get credits and things of that nature that they needed to get. So you have to really blame that on businesses, just like illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants being able to work at a lot of jobs and them so-called taking away jobs from Americans that really want jobs. But y'all got to realize it's these businesses that do that. That's the same thing like with the crack epidemic. If there was no crack, then there would have been no fiends. There would have been no drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? You would have just had historically white people selling cocaine and doing heroin and stuff like that. But I mean, if you take away the problem, then you don't have the issue. But the problem is he's saying that a lot of companies would just do it, you know what I'm saying, because they was forced to. No, you had a lot of companies that was doing that bullshit to get over it. But he doesn't talk about that. And another thing that people don't talk about, this is how y'all got to see how racial it is in our minds and how we need to debunk the systematic racism still to this day. Because he said affirmative action. What you don't hear people talk about, affirmative action wasn't just for black people. And y'all can look this up. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't put it on the video. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't. I'll come back and show some more things. But just right now for this video, this is just a quick response. Affirmative action also helped white women. Affirmative action also helped other people of color. Affirmative action wasn't just for black people. This is what people need to realize. This is why we say it was some bullshit in between that. And we were just taking little crumbs off the master's table, because what you don't realize, at the same time when they was passing an affirmative action bill, white women couldn't get a lot of jobs that they hold dear to give white women nowadays. And that a lot of white women are saying that that's bullshit and that's all you shouldn't give us. But in affirmative action, when it happened, white women was happy to be able to become stewardess, because y'all don't know, this is way before my time as well, so you gotta do your research. Way back in the days, around the 50s and all of that, and prior, only men, right, could be stewardess. Only men could be bank tellers. Only men can do customer service. Only men could be waiters. Only men could be basically anything you can think of. It was only men. I think the only thing they let women really do was like laundry. You know what I'm saying? That type of shit. So it wasn't just for us that we got affirmative action. So that's another thing that y'all gotta pay attention to, the bullshit that people like him spew, regardless of whatever their political beliefs is bullshit, because affirmative action wasn't just for black people.
Kevin's grandparents, on the other hand, got a low-interest loan to buy their first house and get accepted into a handful of top universities, which traditionally only accepted white students. This opened up a wealth of opportunities that they were able to pass on to their kids and grandkids.
The basic assumption of this video is that if your grandparents are rich in the United States, this means that you are rich in the United States. And that if your grandparents are poor in the United States, that means that you are poor in the United States. This is factually untrue. The reality is that income change...
Hold on. Before he says that, let me say this. If you come from a wealthy family and they are making sure to pass down money generation to generation, to act like that's not true is bullshit. That is totally bullshit. If you're gonna sit there and act like it's not what you know, it's who you know. Nepotism has always been practiced by the people of this country, the elite people of this country, and people that have money And you know what I'm saying? But I mean, at the same time, people that can have a connection and have the hookup, you can get the hookup. You know what I'm saying? Like you might have a friend that work at McDonald's and you want to go, you got $2 and you want to get a Big Mac meal. They might hook you up because they run the register. So we're not gonna sit there and act like they don't pass down generation to generation. Like that's bullshit. We're not gonna sit and act like people don't pass down houses through their family. They don't pass down wealth. We didn't. That's come on. That's bullshit.
Is over time that there are an enormous number of people in the United States by percentage who are able to rise from poor to middle class and their children from middle class to wealthy. The biggest problem that we have in the United States right now is not a historic wealth gap. The biggest problem we have is an income gap in the United States. And there's some fascinating statistics surrounding this. There was a Harvard study recently that showed that black males who are growing up in the same household incomes as white males were actually underperforming their white male counterparts even in high income neighborhoods. You would think that all of this might imply racism, except for one inconvenient fact in the study. Black women who are growing up in the same high income neighborhoods as white women growing up in the same high income neighborhoods, black women were performing at exactly the same or higher rates than white women in those neighborhoods, which would suggest that there are other factors at play other than simple racism. Furthermore, the basic...
Okay, so you're saying basically that black man ain't shit. Let's just keep it G. You basically saying black man ain't shit. Black women are the shit, and our sisters are the shit. We love them dearly. But real quick before we get into this, you gotta this is why you gotta realize and take into account systematic racism. Okay, let's go back and think about this. When black men were doing well and being able to be the breadwinners, right? A lot of times black men had to start early working and not being able to finish school. So a lot of times, our sisters, they'd be able to go to school, but a lot of young brothers had to start working early. All right, move fast forward, you know what I'm saying? You had to, in like, you know what I'm saying, warehouse, factory workers, brothers doing construction, doing a lot of things, right? Then you got, let's look at, you know what I'm saying, Black Wall Street. Then you got in Philadelphia, they was doing their thing. They had places in North Carolina, like, it was different places that black family was doing they thing. Then segregation happened, and then us trying to move to where white people were, and you know what I'm saying. And we worked really hard. We worked really hard. Brothers worked a lot really hard. But then when those factories start shutting down, then racial tension and wars, bombing places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. Then when drugs move in, right? And then a lot of brothers trying to make ends meet best that they can. And I'm not saying, right, please don't, because my thing is to stay out the police way. I don't care what nobody thinks that I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to make excuses for it. Stay out the police fucking way. That's how I feel. But at the same time, on some G shit, you know what I'm saying? You're not wrong. Sisters work hard, man. I give them that one. Sisters work hard. But I'm not going to sit there and act like mass incarceration was not an issue for brothers and, systemic racism. I'm not going to sit there and act like that wasn't an issue.
The idea that most wealth in the United States is inherited and the millionaires are really only millionaires because their parents were millionaires, that really isn't true either. The vast majority of millionaires and billionaires are people whose parents were not millionaires and billionaires. Chris Hogan, who's a black financial expert, he did a survey of 10,000 people, and what he found was that of those 10,000 people, 74% of millennials believed millionaires inherited their money, 52% of baby boomers did, but only 21% of millionaires received any inheritance at all. Just 16% inherited more than $100,000. Only 3% received an inheritance at or above $1 million. In reality, the best path toward wealth in this country is income mobility, not inherited wealth. 4% of millennials believed millionaires inherited their money. 52% of baby boomers did. But only 21% of millionaires received any inheritance at all. Just 16% inherited more than $100,000. Only 3% received an inheritance at or above $1 million. In reality, the best path toward wealth in this country is income mobility, not inherited wealth.
Let me say this real quick too. Okay, he said that the brother did research with 10,000 people and what they felt, what they believe, and he said on 21% this blase squads it, but they never really give concrete numbers. How many is that? Are we saying 21% out of those 10,000 people he asked questions, or are we saying 21% out of people out of this country? You got to remember, 10% of people out of this country would be 30 million, because there's over 300 million people in this country, so it'll be over 30 million. So 21% over 60 million. That's a fucking lot of people. Now you got to realize how many generations are we talking about. That's another thing that needs to be break down instead of just dropping a dot in the bucket and then thinking it's full. A drop of water is not gonna fill a bucket. We gotta understand. We gotta think about it. So if he's saying out of this country, 21%, that's over 60 million people out of 300 million people, right? So roughly. So if 60 million people got handed down wealth, how many kids do they have? Let's say there's 4 kids to each person. 4 times 60 million would be what? 60, 120, 240, 240 million people. You know what I'm saying? So if we're saying out of 21% out of this country of people, so that's over a couple. So it's a come on, man. Like you got to understand. So where's the other 100 and something million people that's fucked up? You get what I'm saying? Like it adds over time. Baby boomers add over time in their family and then passing down wealth, which could be any color, not just white. Could be black people. You know what I'm saying? Before whatever atrocities happen, or whether it's bad health. You know what I'm saying? Bad health care, because we don't take care of ourselves like we need to. We need to take care of ourselves better. Or not having the education on how to keep getting money and keep things going. So, I'm just saying, he ain't breaking down the numbers, really. Break down the numbers a little more better than asking 10,000 people questions when there's over 300 million people in this country.
This opened up a wealth of opportunities that they were able to pass on to their kids and grandkids. Even as late as the 1980s, an investigation into the Atlanta real estate market showed that banks were more willing to lend to low-income white families than to middle or upper-income African-American families. As a result, today, for every $100 of wealth held by a white family, black families have $5.04. A 2017 study confirms that redlining is still affecting home values in major cities like Chicago today. This explains how Kevin and Jamal inherited vastly different circumstances.
As it turns out, there were some complicating factors that don't get cited in this video with regard to this data. The Federal Reserve Board economists tried to explain that this data did not take account of differences that were not income-based, things like liabilities, employment history, credit record, and other relevant variables that should have been considered. It should not be particularly surprising that discrimination in the past has impact on the actual income of people who are living in the areas that were denied loans. That shouldn't be a major surprise, but that is not the only disparity, obviously. That New York Times piece they are citing says, quote...
Hold on, real quick, let me say this. He says he's debunking it, but you're agreeing with it. I'm going to get to what the definition of debunk is. Okay, but how can you debunk something when you agree that it was something in the past that affects the future now? You got to realize something. If you have, it's more white people here than it is black people, right? It's like probably like around 200 million white people or something like that around here. So if you have that going on, right, for slavery started from what they allege 1619, right, all the way to 1865. So over 200 years here in this country, right? Got to realize something. If that's been going on for over 200 years with millions upon millions of white people, you damn right they're going to enjoy their privilege. If I was white and I came up through all this time, I would enjoy my privilege until God brought the truth to me. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, it's still going to affect to this day. To say it's not true would be some bullshit. Because this is what we got to think about. Like, let's say Chicago. When Chicago was thriving with black people, and then let's say, you know what I'm saying, let's play devil's advocate. They had issues, then Detroit has issues. A lot of black communities, right, had issues. And then, like they say, you have white flight, then companies leaving. Or, you know what I'm saying, with the redlining. And make sure y'all go check out The Color of Money. That is a dope article. It's an old article. I believe it was written like in the late 80s or something like that. Dope article. Y'all got it. It breaks down redlining. Some things that he's not doing with it. But when you look at the situation of things that's happening right now, it's bullshit to say that that's no excuse. People need to get up and just get money and that would change things. It's a lot of things that we don't know about. Like, real quick, before I started back, like, I was talking to this one guy, like, I want to say 7 years ago. No, I'm sorry, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And me and my partner HD, we used to have a radio show. And we was going to interview Lil Boosie. Shout out to Lil Boosie. And the brother was telling me that it was a lot of loans and grants that we're, as minorities, are supposed to be able to take a part in, you know what I'm saying, and easily get grants off. But guess what? The way he broke it down, for somebody who's trying to look for it, unless you know somebody, you're not going to look on the internet and be able to find it. I used to try to find it and couldn't find it. Loans for minorities. Where do I go get a loan? Who do I go talk to? My ex-girlfriend was telling me about certain loans and things that you can get help with through unemployment. The unemployment site. When I put in these search, it never said nothing about that. So, and then the certain things that are supposed to be going here in St. Petersburg that I should be able to apply for, you can't easily find it. You got to know somebody to find it. And guess what they do with that money at the end of the year? We supposed to be getting a new peer here. If they don't allocate that money to us because we came looking for it, they get to take those millions, 30, 60, $100 million that they supposed to be giving to the minority community and go build a new fucking peer. Y'all can look that up.
They estimate the maps account for 15 to 30% of the overall gaps in segregation and home ownership that they find between the highest risk area and the second highest risk areas. Those are the ones that are being classified. The truth is that when it comes to redlining, you have to look at the gradations as well. There is always going to be a difference in the availability of loans to people who are living in the highest risk areas as opposed to the people who are in the very lowest risk areas. Another factor is that if history does make a difference, then if you are denied loans in a particular area, and if there's less money in those areas, and as crime goes up, and as property taxes kick in, there's not enough money to take, and as schools get worse, obviously that's going to continue to have effect in that particular area. That doesn't mean the same people are living in that area who always lived in that area, or that people who grew up in that area in 1960 necessarily have to live in that area, or that their grandkids have to live in that area in 2020.
Unfortunately, the story...
Real quick, which is bullshit. Because if you look at the statistic rates of how many people move back and forth when it comes to them being like, let's say like baby boomers. My pop, the house that he has, his grandmother passed it down to him, God rest her soul, right? So that community here in St. Pete that he stays in, his grandmother's been staying there before he was born. He stays in that house now, and my pop is 60. So you gonna sit there and tell me that it's not generally the same people. Unless they died off, it's generally the same people that stayed there, especially from the 60s to 70s, because black people in that time was not able to just move anywhere they wanted to. They moved somewhere that was a nice, decent community. They stayed there. That's why you got a lot of old school people. If you look at Chicago now, or you look at D.C., Maryland, and Baltimore, and you look at certain places in L.A. and Philadelphia, you got a lot of people that were staying there since the 50s, 60s, 70s that still stay there, that are older people, even though their community might be dangerous for them as elders, they still stay there. So I gotta say that's actually some bullshit.
It doesn't end there. A big part of systemic racism is implicit bias. These are prejudices in society that people are not aware that they have.
One of the big problems with implicit bias, it is very, very difficult to quantify, identify, and studies that supposedly determine that your implicit bias results in real-world action are deeply flawed. Implicit bias assessment tests, for example, are so significantly flawed they are virtually unusable.
Let's go back to Kevin and Jamal.
Yeah, he's right. With implicit biasness, you can bullshit somebody and say some bullshit. Now, this another thing I have a problem with is when people try to say, when it comes to data, when it comes to research and all of that, people normally try to find shit that gives their point of view validity, right? So when it comes to implicit biasness, you can use numbers to prove somebody's full of shit. But then they can always find some other bullshit to say, just like he's doing right now. Okay, systemic racism is not an issue. It was, but it's not now. So in order for him to understand when he says systemic racism, that's over generations of time. We're still trying to defeat systemic racism. So for him to say he's debunking it is bullshit because we're still trying to defeat it. But the problem is the only way you defeat it, now he does say something with trying to change laws and stuff. He right on that. But the problem is, people still try to find loopholes to still make systemic racism.
All odds, Jamal manages to be the only student from his high school.
Real quick, but like I said, implicit biasness, yeah, people can bullshit, say something that doesn't mean that and hide what they really do mean. And then not only that, people can act like they're just clueless to what's going on, which is implicit biasness is basically like, okay, I didn't know black people were getting beat up by the police until I seen what happened to Rodney King. Basically, that's what that is, real quick.
Get accepted into a great university, the same one that Kevin and his high school friends are attending. But after Kevin and Jamal both graduate, Jamal notices that his resume isn't drawing as much interest as Kevin's, even though they graduated from the same program with the exact same GPA. Unfortunately for Jamal, studies show that resumes with white-sounding names get twice as many callbacks as identical resumes with black-sounding names.
The research is actually a lot more interesting than what is being portrayed in this video. There are several studies here. There was one famous study that was done that suggested that first name differentiation was indeed being used by employers. So if your name was Lakeisha, for example, this is the name that is actually used in the study, Lakeisha versus Greg, that you are less likely to get a callback. There's another study that showed a historically black last name like Washington or Jefferson provided no actual differentiation from historically white names, like Greenberg, for example. So if your name was Steve Greenberg versus Steve Jefferson, you were just as likely to get a callback as Steve Jefferson. What that suggests, and this was confirmed by subsequent studies, is that the actual issue here is a question of class discrimination, not an issue of race discrimination.
Okay, see, this is where I have a problem at. I hope y'all notice how he tried to just like skim past that, which is what you gotta be careful about. A lot of people that try to do that shit. He skimmed past Lakeisha to Steve Jefferson to Greg Jefferson. Stop it. If it was Lakeisha Washington, hell no. You already know if she's not getting a call back, it has nothing to do with fucking classism, bro. That's racism. You're not going to sit there and tell me that the reason why somebody's not going to hire Lakeisha is because she sounds poor. No, she sounds black and poor. She sounds black and ignorant. She sounds black and foolish. She sounds, come on, man. Be for real. Like, this is the problem I have with a lot of people that try to, like I just told y'all, he skimmed past the argument of Lakeisha and then tried to go to last names. This is what I'm saying. He's trying to validate his point even more. And I just want people to think about it. Like, really, we all have to wake up as people and see the bullshit that people try to pass by. He's skimmed past Lakeisha to go to last names. Washington, yeah, I mean, come on. My name could be Michael Washington. My name could be Denzel Washington. It doesn't sound ignorant. Denzel sounds black, yeah, but it doesn't sound ignorant like a lot of white people would think Lakeisha sounds. I'm telling you, y'all watch out for that.
In other words, the reason that people are discriminating against Lakeisha as opposed to against Steve Johnson or Steve Washington is because people are actually using the first name as a stand-in for social class. They are figuring that if you were named Lakeisha, it's because you probably came from a more impoverished background. Now, this is not restricted to the black community. This happens in the Jewish community as well. If you get an applicant and the applicant's name is Ben, you might treat that applicant different than if that person's name is Ben Yamin. You might treat a Menachem different than you treat a Mike. And that is because you are trying to read into the person your perceptions of culture or perceptions of class, not really perceptions of race. That's really, really important when you look at these particular studies and suggest that racial discrimination rather than class distinctions are at the basis of whatever hiring discrimination is happening here.
Implicit bias.
Ben is full of shit. And there should be Ben shit because he's full of fucking shit. You gonna sit here and tell me, right, that if your name is Ben Yachmin, or Mahna, Muhammad, or whatever the fuck, whether you're Jewish, because there's a lot of people that come from Jewish culture or communities that's actually Muslim, believe it or not. So if you mean to tell me Lakeisha sounds like she comes from a poor culture, a culture of what, black people? You're not saying Lakeisha sounds like white trash? What the fuck is you talking about? And then if your name Ben instead of Bechem or whatever the fuck you said, that's still racism on both sides, bro. That's still fucking racism. Like this is how people gotta pay attention to things. So if you saying it happens to Jewish people, right? Which I don't know if it, like I said, maybe it's the Muslim Jewish people or Jerusalem or whatever, and they think they're reckless and might want to blow something up because the Muslim fashion, the ideology, and I understand the culture, but you're talking about lower level on the outs. I mean, a quick glance at culture. So if they're thinking that they had those names Yachmin or Muhammad versus the white name Mike, and them trying to switch it, that they might blow something up, bro, that's racist. If they thinking Lakeisha comes from a poor community because it's a black name, normally Lakeisha or just Keisha, that's fucking racism, dog. Like this Ben Shapiro, Ben full of shit Shapiro tries to use ways to still make his argument. And when people agree with it, it blows my mind because you got to listen to those words. He tried to make it, oh, it's the last name that's the problem, not the first name. Fuck out of here.
This is one of the reasons why the black unemployment rate is twice the rate of white unemployment.
Well, this tends to neglect one key factor. What did you major in? What did you study? It turns out that people who major in education aren't going to do as well as people who major in engineering. According to research from the Center on Education and the Workforce at Georgetown University, this is a quote from PBS, African-American college students are more likely to pursue majors that lead to low-paying jobs, setting up many for future debt and underemployment. Over time, these occupational choices contribute to the wealth and opportunity gap between whites and blacks that spans generations. Anthony Carnival, who's the director of the program, says basically African Americans have been going to the right church but sitting in the wrong pew. In a way, they are using education to climb the social and economic ladder, but they're being steered toward majors that will make them low earners. So, in other words, there are several confounding factors that are not being taken into account in this video. One, what college did you go to? Two, what did you major in? And three, what kind of job did you get afterward?
You can see evidence of systemic...
Let me say this on that with education and about jobs. Okay. So when you see black people trying to be great athletes and make money, millions of dollars doing that, you see black people trying to do music and make a lot of money doing that. When you see a lot of black people, all right, let's stick to entertainment and stuff like that. Then we get told, oh, niggas only good for being basketball players, football players, rappers, dancers, and singers, which give us a lot of money. So we think, let's go for that because it gets us a lot of money. Then you want to say about the education. Let's think about this, guys. Okay, you tell black people we have a problem with the education system, we need to be more teachers. You say that black people, okay, we talking about the police, we need to police our communities. Teachers and police officers don't make that much good money. So explain to me how now you're going to tell me that the reason why we're fucked up for on one side is because we don't try to become teachers that help our education system or police officers to help what's going on in our community. And then you want to tell us it's going to hurt us in the long run because they don't make no real money. And then you tell us not to be basketball players and all of that, athletes, and just bank on that because that's just ignorant and that becomes a stereotype. We need to make up our mind. Which one do you think is going to be better for us? So if the education is, so if brothers and sisters are trying to go into, because you got a lot of sisters that do in the nursing field now. So that helps with that. You know what I'm saying? Making some good money. I know sisters that are LPNs, RNs, and they make great money. They make good money. I know some sisters rolling. Believe me, they make good money. I see a lot of brothers that's trying to do construction and things like I said, a lot of brothers and sisters may not finish going to college a lot. I mean, it's more black women that go to college from what I'm seeing, and statistically, there's a lot of sisters that go to college. I know a lot of sisters that's in college, and he's saying that a lot of times they pick the wrong field. That may be true to a certain extent. I'm not gonna disagree with you on that. I'll let him have that. We may not pick the best things, but is that study showing what it is right now? You get what I'm saying? So I would rather him saying what's the study that he's saying now, when was that study? But also we got to think about what we're telling our brothers and sisters what we need to get into. Like if we're saying we need to police our own communities and become police officers don't really make shit. They make like what, $42,000 a year? That ain't shit. So I don't know. Y'all need to stop trying to tell us to keep going in the wrong fucking fields then or something then.
Racism in every area of life. The disparities in family wealth, incarceration rates, political representation, and education are all examples of systemic racism.
Now we reach the crux of the matter. The basic idea here is that any inequality can be chalked up to systemic racism. We are now ghost hunting. Notice, they've said nothing in this video about incarceration. Nothing about incarceration. The simple assumption is...
That's bullshit. Well, no, he got a point. He didn't really say nothing, but let me show y'all something real quick.
The idea here is that any inequality can be chalked up.
Hold on, y'all.
Wealth, incarceration rates,
Okay. They said wealth, representation, and education. Now, incarceration, they didn't really break down incarceration. He did say incarceration, but he didn't break it down. You can see it on that picture right there.
Political representation, and education are all examples of systemic racism.
Now we reach the crux of the matter. The basic idea here is that any inequality can be chalked up to systemic racism. We are now ghost hunting. Notice, they've said nothing in this video about incarceration. Nothing about incarceration. The simple assumption is that if more black people percentage-wise are arrested than white people, that must be due to systemic racism and not due to the number of crimes being committed by individuals who make a decision to commit a crime. When it comes to representation, the truth is there are many, many black Americans in Congress. We've had a black president of the United States. People choosing to run and people choosing to vote, that is an aspect of American freedom. And when it comes to education, there are plenty of affirmative action programs that exist at virtually every major university. In fact, there are entire university systems like the University of California that have gotten rid of the SAT and the ACT as admissions criteria specifically because they weren't allowing enough minority students to attend. So to attribute all inequality to systemic racism is simply to say that everything you don't like must be due to systemic racism.
Unfortunately,
Okay, I gotta disagree with that. That does not necessarily mean everything you don't like is chalked up to systemic racism. Because this is another thing that white people don't really notice about the black community. You have, even though you have a lot of black people, like even his counterparts that are black conservatives, right? You have a lot of black people that are saying we need to make better choices. You have black people that are saying that. You know what I'm saying? So to make it seem like it's just they're not making better choices, and then you point out Barack Obama, then you point out, you know what I'm saying? Like you can point out these few black people, but what you don't want to point out is the fact that black people normally got to work twice as hard to get somewhere that a white person is more likely. Think about it like this: it's more white people in this country, right? So more white people are going to be, of course, go with more of what they're comfortable, but that is implicit biasness. And the reason that is because, you know what I'm saying, you're basically ignorant to it. You're just thinking, I'm just going off, I know Ben, so I'm going to hire Ben. Or Ben looks like my brother. Ben could be my little brother. Ben could be my uncle. Ben could be my cousin. Ben could be my friend around the corner. So that's how you're going to look at it. And most white people in this country, and believe it or not, it's still a lot of white people that's not around black people like this. It's hundreds of millions of white people that still don't stay around black people. So the only thing they can go off is the bullshit that they see on TV. And God forbid they like Fox News. Oh my God, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a bad thing. But at the same time, to sit there and act like, perfect example. God is good. I just thought about it. Perfect example, right? They blame the Democrats all the time for being racist, right? They said in the 94 crime bill, what Bill Clinton and the Clinton administration brought up, hurt black people the most, right? I want y'all to think about this. He's one of them conservatives that says that about Hillary Clinton and all that. You got Candace Winch Owens. You got a lot of black people, especially conservatives, that blame Democrats for being racist. And the 94 crime bill with Bill Clinton and the Clinton administration made it hard for black people and did astronomical numbers of making it to where it was less than 1 million people in the prisons to over 2.5 or 3 million black people. Million people. So over 1 million of black people is being more black people incarcerated because they made the wrong choices, or I thought it was because of Bill Clinton's 94 crime bill. I thought that was systemic racism by y'all standpoint. The Democrats did that. So now when you saying we need to hold ourselves accountable, and then it has nothing to do with systemic racism, but when y'all want to use that as a good bullet point against Democrats and why Republicans are better, then it's systemic racism on the Democrats' part. Come on, y'all.
biggest challenge with systemic racism is that there's no single person or entity responsible for it, which makes it very hard to solve. So what can you do? The first thing you can do is work towards becoming more aware of your own implicit biases.
We should always, as decent people, be re-examining our own biases and trying to wipe out bad thoughts we may be having about other people. But the idea that something as vague as you had a bad thought about a group is now responsible for the income inequality between black and white is sort of an absurd contention in the absence of any available evidence.
What are some
It is if you're a lawmaker or you're a judge.
prejudices that you might hold that you're not aware of? Second, let's acknowledge that the consequences of slavery and Jim Crow laws are still affecting access to opportunity today.
It is certainly plausible
Yeah, like I said, I would have started with slavery in the beginning of the video. But go ahead.
that slavery and Jim Crow have affected how people's paths have gone in life and the circumstances of their birth. But the question is, how much? If we are going to change policy, and if we are going to effectuate change.
Now remember, y'all, debunk. He said he's debunking the notion of systemic racism, but he just agreed that slavery, Jim Crow, and when we was trying to, abolition, then Jim Crow, slavery, abolition, then Jim Crow. But he's debunking it. Okay.
Shouldn't we be focused more on what are the bad policies today that specifically are keeping people down, and what behaviors can we change today to make our opportunities better, rather than focusing in on slavery or Jim Crow? The fact is that even if you buy into the entire narrative of systemic racism promoted by this video, it changes nothing, and the video is even acknowledging as much.
As a result, we should support.
Now that he is right on. We can't sit around, right, and just blame and condemn all white people because of something that happened in the past. We do have to keep fighting, and I always give a lot of love and respect to our ancestors that fought hard. You know what I'm saying? And through regardless, if you want to go to fighting like, hey, I'm finna kick up dust, and you gotta get at the Nat Turner, or you know what I'm saying? You want to say, or Malcolm X, who's ready to kick up dust. You know what I'm saying? Then you got Martin Luther King Jr. You got brothers and sisters from slavery to the 60s, 70s, the Black Panthers, you know what I'm saying? Definitely Fred Hampton, God rest his soul, to Bobby Seale, to Huey Newton, God rest his soul, you know what I'm saying? Peace to Assata Shakur, you know what I'm saying? Afeni Shakur, God rest his soul, you know what I'm saying? You have people like that, warriors, Geronimo Pratt, God rest his soul, you know what I'm saying? It was people like, we got to do something. So, and then, you know what I'm saying, to the people that try to do their stuff like, Powell Clayton. I think it's Roland Powell Clayton. Please excuse me. I might be messing up, but the brother that was back in Harlem, that was, you know what I'm saying, a person that was in, and he was a pastor too, and he was trying to be, he was in politics as well as a pastor, so he was fighting to change laws. So I definitely would give him that, and I want y'all to see this. I have no problem agreeing with facts and truth, even if it's somebody I don't really care for. But facts and truth is the best thing to stand on. It won't lead you wrong. But having a good heart, too.
Systemic changes that create more equal opportunities for everyone. Increasing public school funding and making it independent from property taxes would be a great start, so that poor and wealthy districts can receive equal access to resources.
The suggestion that simply pouring money into public schools is somehow going to be the solution has been belied by nearly every independent study ever done of public education. Obviously, we should be spending more on schools where not enough spending is going on, where there aren't school books or there aren't enough desks. But the real problem that's existing in educational performance has very little to do with income and a lot more to do with the access to educational opportunity provided in homes. If you have a single family home, it is very difficult for mom to be able to help with homework. If you don't allow kids to go to better schools outside their neighborhood, rather than simply pouring money into failed neighborhood schools, then you're not really granting opportunity.
Systemic problems require...
And I would say he's correct on that, because you see a lot of schools having issues where they're taking the money and putting it into sports because it makes the school look better. They want to get those kids that they can say, oh, such and such went to my school. Like we got Trayvon Bromwell, who ran in the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? He's from Gibbs High School, you know what I'm saying, right here in St. Petersburg. You got Sean King, you know what I'm saying? He went to Gibbs High School. So yeah, you know what I'm saying? You had those schools that take that money and do wrong and then try to put it into freaking sports and stuff instead of putting it into the school like they need to help these students get the education and things that they need to. And another thing, like I brought up earlier, is the teacher unions and things of that nature, is where even though teachers are not that great, but also, like I said, the principals in some of the school system. I had a cousin that taught at Gibbs High School, and we talked about a lot of stuff that she was trying to teach, and the faculty pushed back on her, the principal and everybody pushed back on her, instead of letting her really brighten the horizon of the kids and really help them get ready for SATs and things of that nature. So we do have to be careful about that. But once again, like I stated, not all those kids are going to be able to go to them nice areas in those schools. They're not just going to let anybody in there. Like, say if them kids was problem childs and they ready to clean up their act, but before they actually clean up their act to show that they had 90 days and no suspension and not getting into trouble, them other schools ain't going to let them kids in there. They had the right to turn them kids down, bro. So not all those kids are going to be able to go there. We need to get better teachers also. You know what I'm saying? Pay a little bit more to the teachers and get better teachers and let them actually do great things. Like I said, I seen my cousin go through that for those years she was there at that high school, and they didn't want to let her flourish and do her thing. You know what I'm saying? That might be in kind of decent pay starting out as a young, you know what I'm saying, young lady. But at the same time, they wouldn't let her do what she needed to do, and they fucked her over. So it's a little more than just get up and move. And that's the problem. We keep talking about getting up and moving instead of making our own communities better. Stop saying just get up and fucking move. You know what I'm saying?
Systemic solutions. Luckily, we're all part of the system, which means that we all have a role to play in making it better. Peace.
It's easy enough to say that we all have a role in making the system better, but when you suggest very few practical solutions other than rote democratic policies that have been failed nearly every time they've tried, it makes it difficult to believe this isn't just a political ploy, rather than an argument in favor of bettering individual human lives. To deny the effects of history would be idiotic. History obviously has consequences, and to deny that racism exists would be similarly idiotic.
Real quick, like I said, stop making it about fucking Democrats all the damn time.
But to attribute every problem in American life to racism or inequity is to be foolish and counterproductive and not to make the world a better place. For more on a lot of these topics, go check out my brand new book.
Anyways, all right, so the video is almost an hour. I know y'all probably like, damn, you took our hour. I didn't mean to, because his video was only like 17 minutes, but I had to run my mouth a little bit. But real quick to close out this video. Like I said, with the whole Democrat thing, what I get so tired of these conservatives versus liberals, just stop it. Just stop the bullshit, okay? Just fucking stop it. Instead of just saying, oh, it's the Democrats, the whole party. Let's go ahead and have an issue. Let's talk about the people that are doing these things. And if they are Democrat and have Democratic power, tell them to get that motherfucker out of there. Let's do that. Let's stop always just the Democrats and then just leave it at that. If you really care about other people, you're going to be like, listen, that person y'all got running over there is fucking y'all over. It can't just be, oh, well, that's their problem. That ain't my problem. Because if that's the case, then y'all need to stop commenting on what's going on with Democrats and what's going on in the black community and other communities, and don't worry about y'all white asses or the rich white asses or the rich classism asses that y'all got in the white community. Don't worry about what's going on over here then. Shut the fuck up when we talking about police brutality, education, mental illness, income gap, and all of that stuff that's going on in our community. Don't say nothing then. Shut the fuck up. Don't say shit then. Because I'm tired of hearing that. So this would be my thing to y'all. For anybody who watched this video, if you are a Democrat or a Republican, whatever the fuck, we need to start thinking smarter. I really don't think, you know what I'm saying, things are going to be perfect or better, until black people as a whole get together and make our own shit, our own party to worry about. And if we decide to vote for whoever, that's on us. But if y'all want to do that, Democrat, Republican, that's fine. Get with these people to try to make changes and work things out. Stop looking at it as like a fucking game. You want Bloods and Crips to start banging, but y'all banging? Y'all banging politics? Get the fuck out of here. Stop that bullshit, man. Let's act like real fucking adults and civilized people. If we are that, then we should be able to come together and work together. Fuck, it's the Democrats. Fuck that bullshit, because not all Democrats agree with all Democrats or Republicans, vice versa. Stop that bullshit. Let's get smart and figure it out. Stop, this is better than that. Stop running to red and blue and stop that bullshit. Let's just go ahead and work together. And then, like I said, another thing with this whole bullshit, he's debunking it. How can you agree with a lot of things when they say, oh, this happened, that happened, yeah, that does this, but we got to do this to change that? We wouldn't have to do this and do that to change that if it didn't really exist. It does exist. You see bullshit all the time. You see police officers saying racist shit all the time. Y'all can look it up. I did a video where I was, me and my partner HD was talking about what happened with those North Carolina cops who said racist shit. Y'all can look that type of stuff up and see it all the fucking time. Police are saying racist shit. Politicians saying racist shit. Fire fucking men saying racist shit. Athletes saying racist shit. Coaches saying racist shit. It's racism all over the place. And you gotta realize something. If people have money and fucking power and they own a business. If you look at fucking Donald Sterling, the racist shit that he said, he don't want niggas coming to his game with his Mexican black chick, half black woman. But it's okay for them niggas to play for him and make him a fucking billionaire continuously every fucking year when he was over the fucking, when he was over, I forget the fucking name. Y'all know the place, the Clippers. The Clippers. That was okay. That's the mind frame of systemic racism, is when you have power in a systemic system. When you have racist people who have power, and then you try to say it's not that. You're saying redlining is not a real thing, but you mean to tell me Mike Pence and fucking 45 Trump got cases against them because they was not written to certain people. And then you say, oh no, it's not them. It's because the people that was running the company and they was thinking racially. Don't fucking matter. It's still systemic racism, bro. It still exists. It still happened because those cases happened in the 2000s. So it's still fucking happening. It's not just we vote for the laws. It's the fact that we got to keep fighting. We got to keep fighting. We shouldn't have to fight for human rights. These are human rights that are being violated when it comes to systemic racism. That's what y'all got to realize. And real quick before I get out here, debunk. Expose the falseness or hollowness of a myth, idea, or belief. Reduce the inflated reputation of someone, especially by ridicule. You can't agree with it and then debunk it. You can't. You just can't. So this your boy JT Opposite from the Norm. I'm glad if y'all was able to stay for the whole hour or come back and whatever. I thank y'all. Don't forget, like, share, comment. I definitely want to hear y'all comments on this. Or if this is your first time checking me out, if you liked it, subscribe. If you don't, this your boy JT Opposite from the Norm. I'll holler at y'all.